Doctor Who series 11, episode 3,
Rosa.
Rosa.
Rosa. Yeah,
I
that was a
really
good
like.
episode. I actually saw this one. I watched it as it premiered on BBC or BBC
I
America.
watched the next day because I had to. I was at work.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they focused so much on the history.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't have as much problem with them focusing on history, and they didn't lessen the impact of what I've watched some other things, and I agree with some people that say it didn't reduce what she did because they just all they did was guard the timeline. They didn't push it forward. They
Yeah,
just
Yeah.
like
sort of
I
we're
like the
getting
fact
everything
that
to happen the way it happened before. We're not going to reduce what she did. Just this, we're
yeah,
just going to make sure that nobody interferes,
yeah, it's like it's no less of the Doctor being the hero, but it's the Doctor being the hero by
making sure
uh
nothing different happens.
yeah,
And I really like how in this one, as opposed to a lot of the new Who quote unquote history
like with
stories
Shakespeare.
they, uh, where they just skim over facts, like a black person in that time frame would not have been as, oh, okay, cool, as they tend to make it seem in the episodes. Shakespeare or the Frozen Lake, they tend to just accept their skin tones with no question. Whereas this one, it actually shows the truer to life history
Yeah,
than.
it feels like it's a little. Well, I do not doubt that pretty much all of the things that happen because of that sort of the attitudes of the time happened to somebody. It just it does intensify it because it's all compressed into an episode. It's like, yeah, you're gonna all those things happened at some point to someone, probably multiple times. In any given city, multiple times a day, you'd probably be able to find any of that. Though getting kicked out was probably of the bar was probably not something because that happened a lot. Simply because people knew that that was what was going to happen. But yeah, most of that would have they had to they brought everything in sort of intensified it because it all sort of happened on top of each other because the culture they weren't aware of what all the cultural rules were at that time, and so that sort of sped up and compressed all these things that happened.
I do have to say, I really liked Graham in this one. How he just stood up for, oh, that's my grandson. Even though
Yeah,
everybody's like, no way. It's like, yeah,
can't
your point.
possibly be.
Eh.
And you can see in his face at the end when he had to be there and had to force Rosa to stand,
Yeah,
you can see how much that hurt him.
please, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to be part of this.
We have to.
And you can see how much it was hurting the doctor that she had to do that too.
Yeah, overall, I'm not sure. I didn't look into the historicity. I'm sure they did well enough with all the dates and everything. That seems like that's a fairly easy thing to get right. Of this is exactly where she worked. This is this is da 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 da
Mhm.
da 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 da. And there's enough. She's been a public figure long enough that I haven't checked to see that they got the accent right, but I'm sure that that's pretty close because I haven't heard her speak in probably years. There might have been. I might have listened to her speak at one point at some history class or something, but I haven't. I don't. I'm sure that was decent enough. It was a decent enough accent for what it was.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I've
I
seen,
think they really did their research.
yeah, you can tell this one actually they did research on and didn't just, this is more of a historical story
Yeah,
as opposed to a fantasy story taking place in historical times.
but
Yeah,
it feels like a little bit, you know, a little bit like they were trying to make almost like they were trying to make like a high school, lesson movie. It's like, and this is what she did on this date and this,
Well, no,
there was a little bit of
that's
that in there. There was a little bit of that in there.
what Doctor Who originally was. Back
Yeah.
in the 60s, it was pitched as a science fiction history show where they would switch off between science fiction in outer space and then historical stories to teach people about history, to teach children about history. In fact, one of my favorite First Doctor stories is one of the historicals, the Aztecs.
Hmm.
And so I really do appreciate that they're bringing that sort of story back into the folds, into the
I'm curious about, like, if you went back now, how accurate are those stories? How have they were they are they a little, underserved because the people just didn't know anything yet. They didn't know everything yet, like all the archaeological advances since then. I would be curious to see exactly, it's like, oh no, that was way off. That wasn't even close to being historically accurate. But they tried.
the magic school bus and the oh, we're going to explore the 9 planets.
It's the same idea, but with history instead. And I'm sure there are
Yeah.
some things in the Magic School Bus that have been, you know, they tried to keep it basically, surface level and not get too ridiculously deep. Enough that you got the information you needed, but not so deep that it you know, that you got into some, rather deep stuff. So I
yeah,
imagine there are a few things here and there in like the Magic School Bus that need to have like, okay, this was thought true at the time, but now has been done this. And yeah, Pluto at this time was considered a planet, and now it's a dwarf planet. So technically, it's still a planet. It's just a dwarf planet at this point, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I would like to see what the annotations for that are. Somebody just going through and
Yeah.
picking up on what what little they made mistakes on, because it was pretty settled stuff for the most part. But I imagine they probably made little errors here and there, or things that just weren't known at the time, and new
Yeah.
discoveries have sort
yeah,
of, okay, well it's true, but there's this little complication that doesn't make it. This isn't a really great representation of it because of X or Y. Um, yeah, most of it was okay. The music, I wasn't the little song at the end is not a huge fan of, but okay.
The main music in it reminded me of Voyager.
I was talking about like the pop song at the end,
Oh
sort of
yeah,
thing.
no, I know what you're talking about. But I mean the emotional song in there, the one
yeah,
that they used during all of the really tense sequences really made me think of the Voyager opening.
Yeah.
it's a good song.
Da, da,
So I
da,
mean, that's a compliment.
da.
Yeah, but I mean,
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
I
what?
think
But yeah, I didn't notice that. I don't really ever notice the music too much unless it's something that sticks out too much.
I don't always notice it. It's just that the way it just triggered a thought of Voyager as I was watching them. Like, wait a sec, why am I thinking Voyager? Backtrack. Oh, okay, it's the music.
Yeah. It's like, at least they didn't plop in Faith of the Heart.
True.
Which, if you've heard the like Archer's theme for that was the original like opener for that, and I've seen somebody just took Archer's theme and just took that and replaced Faith of the Heart and put that theme onto the opening. It actually is really cool. But yeah, whatever. Getting on a tangent here with other science fiction.
That's okay. There is a comic series, Star Trek meets Doctor Who.
Yeah, where they've crossed over, and was it
Yeah.
11 and Picard meet?
There have been a few different ones, because there was one during the Fourth Doctor era too, in the original series.
Yeah, I was only aware of the crossover between, I think it was 11 and Picard.
Yeah, it was either 10 or 11.
Yeah, I really strongly remember it being 11, but I could be wrong. And I think it was like Cybermen and the Borg they were fighting, but anyway. So, tangentially related, but still a tangent.
Anyway, honestly, I think probably what was one of the... I forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
Okay, going on to the villain, which I think is the weakest part of this story.
I do agree. At first, when they came across the when he first showed up, I thought it was the Master's newest regeneration. At first,
which would have been a funny. Which actually would have been a funny way of, oh, I'm just nudging you around, Doctor, because I feel like it. But
yeah,
but
especially when they had the briefcase. Can we open it? Is the right question. Because I was just thinking Fantastic Beasts and a dimensionally transcendental suitcase. That would be a great TARDIS. Just carried around with you.
And the best part would be you just sort of prop it open and then you just do the whole going downstairs behind a wall, a half wall sort of thing.
Yep.
And you just you do that, and then he just sort of disappears into the case. It's like,
yep.
Okay, that's a TARDIS of some sort.
Yeah.
But yeah, the villain's I mean, having the thing in his head where he can't kill directly. That was unique.
Yeah.
A little cheap, but it was unique, at least from what I've seen in
Definitely
Doctor
got
Who. At least New Who.
Definitely got to let the Doctor show off a bit of her swagger.
Yeah.
Oh,
she did have a little bit more of her coming into her own in this one.
Oh, the Banksy
she seemed
stuff.
a little bit excited by the conflict.
Banksy stuff.
Yes.
It's like,
or was I Banksy?
Or am I?
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about was how they resolved the villain, like dealing with him, didn't feel very doctorish. Like, we're not going to
take care of him.
What?
That was all Ryan.
Yeah, I know,
right?
But I'm talking about this from a meta perspective, from the way the writers dealt with him. Like, instead of like having the Doctor talk to him or something happened to change his mind.
She did try to talk to him.
Yeah, but that wasn't how they resolved him. They just like, oh yeah, pew, because we can't, it's just that, we can't actually, change his mind. So we're just or I
That
can't
happened in the first episode too,
what?
where she's like, "You can just walk away, or I could just kill you all," and end up killing myself.
But yeah, it felt really it felt a little lazy. I mean, you could have done so many things with like you could have had you know Ryan save him from something and go. We've established that he's already prone to bouts of heroism with his whole with the gun charge in the Ghost Monument, where he
Hmm.
goes and starts shooting everything, and then it all comes back. I mean, it didn't work, but that's well within his character to save somebody, and that would have been a great way of saying, yeah, you're not right. Look at this. This is an example of where you're wrong. How can you feel this way about this people? Da, 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 and
So, to be fair, one, the character had already served his purpose.
yeah,
Two,
but
he, two, just he was already a pseudo reformed criminal, and Ryan just shooting him to get him out of the way also is within Ryan's character,
yeah,
because
all I'm not saying that anything that was done wasn't within character. What I'm saying is the character of the series as a whole. I think that's not how I would have wanted the Doctor to beat him. Was to
okay,
beat the to solve the puzzle of the episode, to
he's
solve it in a
going
way
to
that
happen.
leaves him with development and a changed
This
perspective.
isn't this isn't My Little Pony.
This is it's still the Doctor, and the Doctor Who
Yes,
tries to at least solve these things.
not
It
always.
just feels really it feels really cheap to do it this way. It feels like we're we're not don't try and change these people's minds. Just just get rid of them. Just it's sort of this
I
whole
mean,
British mentality of out of sight,
Cameron,
out of mind. Get rid of them, and we don't need to
the
talk to
Doctor
these
really
people.
did try
Yeah,
he
but
to
did.
I'm talking about meta at the series writer level.
Yeah, but,
Okay,
uh,
but
that's where
this,
that's where I'm having this conversation at. Not okay. The
yeah,
Doctor did try, but
but
the
he
Doctor should
was
have
not.
succeeded. That would have been a better way of dealing with this episode, especially when dealing with race already, talking about why racism is bad. Showing that. Okay, show how to reform. How somebody might change their mind. Talk to them. Give good arguments. Do something like that instead of just going, out of sight, out of mind. You're gone. It doesn't. He still got bad ideas in his head. He's still wrong, but you just
There,
instead of he's just sort of pushed him out of the way.
yeah, but the thing is, I think it would be interesting to see if that has some credence into a future adventure where you
If he
have
becomes a
somebody,
recurring villain, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I was
no,
actually just thinking,
not not necessarily completely recurring, but more of in a subsequent episode he'll
Yeah,
come back,
yeah.
just like
If they do,
one-off.
yeah, absolutely. If he comes back and they deal with
Well,
him properly and they change his mind and they reform him and show
not
him the
even
world, not to say reform, but just like change his perspective and make him realize.
not everybody be reformed. Not everybody can have their mind changed. Some people are just bad. And
Oh
but that,
wow.
that being said, if he
Wow,
if
that's
he tries
simplistic.
to use, if he tries to use wherever he was, however far back he was sent, and tries to change something back then to get his agenda working. If Ryan sent him back to, I don't know, the Middle Ages or something, and he tries to set his agenda through that to
But
keep
But yeah, if they do a subsequent episode where they, they change his mind somehow, they talk him out of his ideas, they show him the error of his ways, that sort of thing. I think that would be a more Doctor Who way of dealing with him as a meta level. Um,
All characters can be reformed. Not all people can be
but
reformed.
it's such an opportunity. It's such an opportunity if you're going to show, because I think it's just, the way it's just, how to put this. It just, how to put this in
I
a way that would make sense.
to the past because, and especially when he doesn't know exactly what he's doing, because it gives him an opportunity to change things even further.
Wouldn't it?
But besides that, getting rid of him is kind of the best solution sometimes.
Well, and there's other ways that they could have dealt with him as well. Like, I know it would ruin the episode in a way, but like, just capturing him, just taking him and putting him in the TARDIS. Like, okay, we're gonna hold him here. You go grab the TARDIS, and you come back at this moment. You can go, you can arrive as soon as you left. Bring the TARDIS back. We put him in the TARDIS until after the thing is finished. And so he can't. We fix up whatever he's messed up, and then we move on. There's lots of ways. That were creative ways of dealing with this problem. Convince him he's wrong. Uh, you know, you know, they did protect the timeline in the end, but there were other interesting ways of doing it that would have been, I think, stronger ways of dealing with it. But it's just a matter of, I think it's a bit of an allegory for how UK deals with this. It's just like, oh, race, just we're not going to try and reform. Just well, they send people, but their hate speech laws and whatnot. It's like, yeah, just lock them up and whatnot. It's like, no, you got to talk to these people and convince them out of their ways. You can't just lock them up. It's not going to do anything. But that's their internal politics. But it's just like, it felt like that's a perfect allegory for how they deal with this. But I pay a little more attention to that sort of thing in, um, on different channels and whatnot. But moving along, without getting too much further into the inside baseball of British racial politics. One thing that's going to be interesting: is the Doctor going to ever talk to Ryan about doing that? About essentially, chucking him through time. It's like, yeah, Ryan, that was okay. Yeah. Well,
Since all the dust is settled, maybe bring it up or have it a reoccurring theme, because it is mentioned that he has anger management issues and he's learned how to control his anger, but at the same time, it does sometimes get the better of him. So maybe because he is so impulsive, that's something that is brought up again, and the Doctor has to deal with that in future because he does something similar again.
There's all sorts of things that that could come out of that, but that does seem like something the Doctor would go, okay, it helped, but in future, let's not go slinging people through time with devices you don't fully understand.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you get that setting wrong just slightly, that things that Nile is nudged just slightly, you're gonna send him, careening out into deep space. It's like, oh, it's like, yeah, you could do that. But yeah, if he comes back and they actually deal with him properly, then yeah, that would be a more Doctor Who thing to do. But yeah, um,
I thought that the way they dealt with the story in general was really well done. I know you have your issue with the whole getting rid of the catalyst, because that's all he was a catalyst for the episodes to take
yeah,
place.
yeah. Obviously, that was what he was supposed to be. He was supposed to be a pinata to whack, a racist pinata to whack that was gonna come in here, cause the problems, and then
Yeah.
they would have to deal with him somehow. And so once he was dealt with, it's like, okay, well, now we just got to deal with what he did. You know, so yes, obviously everybody knows what he did was wrong. So let's just whack out the racist piano. It's like, okay, that's out of the way. But yeah, other than I think they missed some opportunities to have some great doctor, you know, you're a racist and this is why you're wrong, and prove him wrong and show him how he's wrong. You know, there were so many different things that he could have done. That I think it was a little bit of missed opportunity. But again, I know also that they're on a limited time budget. Too they have to worry about that. And maybe but it felt like a little bit of a missed opportunity, and the villain was a little bit flat. He was a little bit,
Yeah.
just sort of there.
The villain wasn't really, he was, like I said, just the catalyst. He didn't need to have as much dimension because he served his purpose.
Yeah, but yeah, it would have. But it's always nice when you have a
Oh, I
full reasoning of why that character does it. It's like Gul
you
Dukat
would have,
was awful, was just awful, but you could kind of see where he thought he was right.
yeah,
Those sorts of people where it's like, I know you're wrong, but this is
if
why you
he
think you're right, and this is why you're wrong.
does come back, I would love to see some backstory to him and see why he is that way.
Yeah, because at this point, as far as in the future as he is, it's really racism is for all the yelling and screaming is actually quite low compared to it's on decline. There's there's still people that yell and scream on from stuff from either side of the that thing, but
And
it
even brought that up too, how, you know, yes, there is still that racial divide, but at the same time, Yaz is a police officer because of people like Rosa Parks who faced that actual deep-seated racism and that segregation and dealt with it and helped make things better. And it's not perfect, but it's getting there.
yeah. And by the future, I mean,
And
what how
50
did he
years,
become that way? Because at that point, I'm thinking, we're dealing with, I don't remember the exact century he was from, but he was far enough in the future that it's like,
76 or something like that.
what?
76th, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was far enough in the future where I'm thinking, okay, at that point, the culture will have they'll always be racist with us. They're just going to be at the fringes, and they're going to be there. You can't completely stomp them out. You can
Yeah.
convince people why they're wrong. You can say you're wrong. You can show they're wrong. You
And I
can
mean,
take all their fuel away from
that
them. You can do all
it
that.
is it is an instinct that is hardwired into the human brain. It isn't it is a genetic thing to see an outsider as a threat from back during tribal times. Somebody who is not of your tribe is a potential threat, a potential danger. And therefore, somebody who is not of the same race as you is a potential danger. And in fact, they've done studies in, neurology that has proven that it is racism is hardwired into the human brain.
But at that point, at the point where he's at, the culture should be so overwhelmingly, you know,
Homogenized.
homogenized. So there's not really any. You're unless there's some little, a monoracial like colony. Everybody should be basically sort of cafe au lait, just sort of not really. There's not really a lot of black or white left. It's sort of there's not really a race to be racist against because everybody's sort of mixed. It's like Native American, they're just sort of like they're not a lot left, but they're just sort of there's a lot of people with a low level of it, low level Native American ancestry like everywhere. The genes are
Yeah,
everywhere, but like, you know, it just sort of
the culture faded.
disappears. They kind of fade
Yeah.
into the everybody else. So it's like eventually it'll just, enough time it'll just sort of for the most part homogenize, I would think. I'm not saying there won't be some people out there that this little group here is going to remain this color or whatnot, and they've decided they're only going to.
They'd have been in constant contact with extraterrestrials. They will have alien species to deal with.
Yeah, and there'll be there might even be alien hybrids for all we know.
People, how is he against Centaurans and Jadoon and all the other races out there?
Yeah, like what culture? Like I understand somebody. It's very easy to be racist in some place like 1950s, 1960s Alabama. That would be exceedingly easy to do.
Yeah,
Understand? It'd be easy to do. It'd be easy to understand why people would become that way because that's the culture. That's what you're raised on. You were encouraged to follow the cultural norms of your time. But where is he that's like a normal thing? Is he considered just an absolute monster in his time or a weirdo? I mean, what, you know,
he was in the maximum security
yeah, yeah,
secure prison in the universe. So I'd say he is a bit of a douchebag.
yeah, on top of that, yeah. So, yeah, not only is he, a a racist, an avowed racist, somebody who's just like, yeah, he's a full fledged. He's not. This isn't. We're not throwing. Oh, you're this color, so you're a racist. That sort of nonsense. Just he is a self-avowed racist, and so
Yeah.
he's also
You're
a criminal. So it's like, yeah, and also probably a rather dangerous one, given that they had to put in the no kill button in his head.
yeah. He killed 2,000 people, and that's why he was sent to that maximum security
Yeah, I forgot
prison.
about what all he did, but I remembered it was severe, and so it would have to be in order to do that. But I didn't
If
forgot
you
what exactly he did. But yeah, I mean,
2,000.
he's pretty fringe and pretty weird, I would imagine, in his own time. Like, why do you hate black people? There hasn't been everybody's sort of mixed at this point. I mean, he himself is probably, you know, unless his family keeps an immaculate genealogical diary of who they have married into, and you know there's probably at
And
this point enough chance
the
that
kid,
he's part black at some point. At this point, I mean, that's hard enough to escape today, considering we're all, if you go back far enough, we're all African. It's just
yeah,
it's you have to go really far back, but yeah, I mean, so
it's funny. In one of the episodes of Strike Back, which has the guy who plays Sam Bishop,
mm,
and he had to go undercover in this white supremacist group, and he's part black. And he's like, but he's such a small part. She's like only a quarter or something. And he was talking about how he hates people like that, those like supremacists, racists, and how hard it was not to just like beat the crap out of all of them and had to play nice with them when his own dad had trouble because he was of mixed race.
Yeah, so I mean, it's sorry, I just got this Blazing Saddles moment going through my head. There, have you seen
I've
Blazing
seen it.
Saddles?
I wish I had.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I
You
can
got to see it. You got to
I
see
can
it in the uncensored version. It's beautiful because it would never fly with like censors today because it's got too much stuff in it. But it's all the racism is mocking racists. Like
yeah.
they're they're hiding
Like,
behind like
there's one scene where, because this takes place back in the Wild West,
yeah
and they're trying to, and this one guy is trying to get rid of this town so he
yeah
can build a
land
railroad.
grab land
And
snatch. That's what it was.
he sends this black guy to be their new sheriff. And so the town crier is there looking at the thing, and he's like, "There, the new sheriff's a nit," and a horn plays over it,
Yeah.
and it's like, he says the new sheriff is near.
Yeah.
That reminds me of Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Black sheriff?
That's probably what
Worked
it
in
was.
Blazing
If that
Saddles.
came afterwards, that's probably where it came from. And there's
Oh yeah,
the scene that it reminds
they
me
directly
of.
mentioned. It's like the guy actually says, "Hey, worked in Blazing Saddles."
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. But what the funniest scene is like one of the funniest scenes is they're trying to he and his the guy who plays the sheriff, and they got Gene Wilder as his deputy, and they're
yeah,
trying to infiltrate
yeah.
the villains. He's gathered up a bunch of you know terrible people to be his little minions to drive these people out of the town. Well, they need to get close enough to start get information and deal with him and whatnot. And so there's these two KKK guys in full hoods standing out there. Oh, it's a scene and a half. It's funny. And they're standing there, and Gene Wilder pulls sort of the sheriff on, from behind this rock, and is like, look what we got here, boys. And he in the to the KKK members, and the sheriff goes, "Where are the white women at?" And the KKK members chase them behind the rock. They beat them up and take their cloaks so they could get in close. And so you've got the sheriff, who is black, hiding as a KKK member. So when he gets up to they're signing up for this little army. He's like, oh yeah. They notice that he's a KKK robe, but he's got black hands. It's like,
Look at that smudge. It was a cross burning earlier. That stuff just doesn't wash out.
yeah, or something like that.
Hand over. Oh look, it's rubbing out.
Yeah, and at this point the jig is up, and they have to bolt, I think, at that point. But it's really funny because it's like, that's not very sensitive. That's not very politically correct. Yeah, but the whole movie is them making fun of racists, just continually
And
taking the piss out of racism. It's hilarious.
And it shows, and the racists are the stupid people.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the movie. Is like, yes, there's like, okay, he's not treating him any different. Like the Gene Wilder's character is not treating the sheriff any different than anybody else. But like, there's other people who are legitimately racist, and they're all treated like jerks or evil or wrong in some ways, and treated as idiots. And so by the end of the movie, like, most of Rockridge has come around on Sheriff Bart, I think was his name, and
Yeah.
and like, but the villains are still, though.
And the fight breaks out throughout the entire studio.
Oh yes, just a blanket recommendation: get a hold of the original edition of Blazing Saddles. The TV cut down one, it makes some cuts that I'm like, but the original version is amazing. It's got a it goes from really funny commentary and sort of like poking fun at racists to like there's an entire scene where it's just it's just cowboys sitting around campfire eating beans and farting immensely.
Oh yeah, that scene.
Yeah, I think that's one of the weird ones that it's like that's cut out of the TV version. I think it's like
Really?
I think
I
I think
haven't seen the
I
TV version.
I think that's one of the weird ones. Like something is they changed something about that particular part of the scene. I don't know what it is, whether they cut it out or something. I seem to remember that, but it's been a while since I've seen the TV version. I like watching the original version because it's funnier, because it's the full fat. Yes, we're outright mocking racists. It's like, yes, this is funny.
Funny and true.
Well, and it's more than just racism. There's other things that are funny, but you know, and like it takes the Wild West sort of thing and it just goes, okay, this is what's stupid about these movies. Let's sort of make fun of them, and then it actually does, for all the movies that you see, the Wild West movies, it actually handles what the Wild West would have been like in some ways. But yeah, absolutely. If you have not seen it, watch the original. Anything with Mel Brooks. Go see anything
Mel Brooks is automatically good stuff, but
yeah, if you have not seen Mel Brooks movies,
this is one.
Find a way. Stop right now. Stop what you're watching. Stop right now. Go get a hold of them. Watch them. They're fantastic.
Because they are comedy gold.
Yeah.
We now return to our regularly scheduled review.
Yeah, we kind of got off task, but I still think people should know about that.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, that's a way you can handle that sort of thing. Mock them, show them they're wrong, that sort of thing. But
I'm sure the Doctor would be perfectly fine to mock some people.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, your ideas, I'm mocking your ideas. Your ideas are stupid. You can change your ideas. He does, you know what, it's just called change. It's just changing your mind. That sort of thing. It's like, he does a whole speech, this whole Zygon speech on war. It's like, this is a scale model of war. No matter how righteous you feel, when you fire that first shot, you don't know who it's going to hit. You don't know who it's going to kill. You don't know, how many hearts are going to be broken. That sort of thing. He does a whole speech on that. She couldn't come up with a good speech to be anti-racist. It's like, okay, whatever.
Don't forget, it's a different lead, and it's a different story.
It's a different
type.
Doctor and whatnot, but yeah.
But also, it's a different story type.
Yeah, that too. But
like, she might have some point where she gives one of those speeches, but they didn't really have space for it in this with what they were trying to cover.
Yeah, it was just a matter of you basically sum up this show, this episode quickly. The historical stuff's neat. It does a pretty good job of not taking away from Rosa Parks. The fill-in is a little flat, and I personally would have liked, from a meta point, to have seen more effort towards reformation, or at least showing him he's wrong in some way or shape or form, rather than just zapping him away. But other than that, and the pop song I wasn't a real big fan of, but other than that, it was a good episode.
I actually kind of liked the song at the end. It's another one by one of the more modern artists that I haven't heard anything that she's done that I haven't liked to some degree.
Oh. Well,
That was Sia that did that song.
okay,
I
well
could just
that
tell by
makes
the
sense
voice.
why I recognize why the voice seemed familiar, because she also did.
She was Songbird Serenade.
Yeah, she was in that movie, but yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't. It seemed in to put that over the credits was a little bit much, but I guess they paid for it, so they want to use it as much as they can. Um, I wasn't a huge fan of it then. I haven't been really a. It's okay, but it's sort of generic pop, and I'm not a big fan of like sort of generic pop. It's just generic modern pop is just sort of meh. So I'm not a big fan of it, but
I prefer soda.
here we go again. We had a whole argument about soda and that whole discussion.
I would
Soda or soda pop?
It's soda. It covers everything. You don't
Does
need to
it,
put
though?
pop. Yes, in Texas it does. Of course, you're more likely to just say, oddly enough, just say a Coke. You know, it's less popular, and that phrasing is less popular in my generation, but like my grandparents' generation, like, you know,
I'm gonna go get a Coke. Want a Coke?
that's actually a phrase that
Comes home
has
with a
been
Dr.
uttered.
Pepper.
You know, that's a
it's funny because I got into that debate a while ago with somebody who calls it pop. And she's like, don't call it soda, it's pop. And I'm like, I've never heard it called pop. I've heard it called soda or soda pop.
I've heard it.
called
It's in
pop,
a different.
but I rarely hear it called pop anymore. It's either soda or soda pop or
And
the
she's like,
specific
where are you
brand.
from? And I'm like, she's like, where are you from? I'm like, Chicago. She's like, what kind of Midwesterner are you? Midwest uses pop. I'm like,
what is she from, like Minnesota or something?
no, she's from like Michigan or something.
Okay, it's a little further north, so you get a little more of the don't you knows.
But she could also be from the eastern Michigan, because don't forget, Michigan is split up.
Yeah, but still, it'd be a little more north than you, and maybe there's a little crossover with that. But
so there's like a West Michigan and an East Michigan, and they never get along like the Dakotas.
And then East Michigan.
yeah, you got the mitten, and then you got the little stick.
Yeah. Which actually, where I am, is slightly north to the stick. Because I am in northern Illinois. I'm like a half an hour from the border to Wisconsin.
Yeah. But yeah, so, I mean, yeah. But this has nothing to do with Doctor Who, so let's go ahead and wrap this up and call this a...
No, it has to do with Dr. Pepper.
What?
Which is just as important.
Not really. Doctor Who is better.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. What are we going to next?
Well, I was going to say, also, I think they're trying to push a little bit of a ship, trying to build a ship with, Ryan and Jazz, which I'm not sure how I feel about that, because it feels almost like what they did with, Mickey and
Rose?
Martha. Or
oh yeah, that one. Okay, never mind.
Or Clyde and Ronnie from Sarah Jane Adventures, where they're the colored folk. Let's put them together.
Ooh. Okay. Well, I guess I'll leave that in. We'll see how that goes. I mean, there is the background that they do know each other. So I mean,
yeah, they are childhood friends.
So yeah, it's got a bit more footing, but we'll see what they end up doing with it.